So I'll start off to welcome you, Heath Ryan. Thank you so much for talking to us. First of all, would you be able to start at the beginning and tell us about how your dressage went in the 3-star?
Right, so I've got a young horse here called Aspire R. He's a grey gelding. He's 9 years of age, and he's pretty new to the 3-star.
Yeah.
He went as well as he's ever gone in the dressage, and we got a 49 penalties, which put us into the lead, which was a great start. The main sort of top guns in Australia weren't actually in the class, and it's an interesting thing. It took me a little bit by surprise.
Okay.
But we have the Trans-Tasman competition a little later in the year, and they've picked our 5 best riders and combinations for that, and so that took those guys out. And there were certainly some of the guys who decided that Sydney was a little early in the trialling for the Olympics, the Rio Olympics, and so decided to abstain and not go and sort of concentrate on focusing. So anyway, it was a real surprise that I ended up in the lead in the 3-star in the dressage.
Yeah.
There was a young guy called Sean Dillon, and he was running, I think, 50 penalties or something like that in close, and all the girls, and it was mainly a girl filled class. They were all in really close, and some of them are really, really good cross country, and we knew, both of us, that Sean and I, that it was going to be our lead, our first and second place, was going to get seriously challenged. As cross country day dawned, and it was really wet and raining, and we were sort of on the edges of the typhoon, certainly cyclones that were buffeting Queensland, and the track was really, really heavy. Now, the course builder, Mike Etherington Smith, he was a very, very experienced course builder. In actual fact, he'd built the track here at the Sydney International Equestrian Centre in the 2000, which was the Olympics, and of course, so it was a very good Olympic course builder. And he didn't wait for the weather to hit. He'd already withdrawn some of the really new fences, the innovative fences, where they had disturbed the footing and the soil and the approach to the fences in terms of building these, like through earthworks, building the fences. And it was a very astute move. It must have nearly broken his heart, because there were some really beautiful, new, imaginative fences where you had 3 trees sitting on top of like mounds, and they were almost like turrets, and a new sunken road which looked very challenging, and they were, in years to come, they're going to be feature jumps here at Sydney, and they'd taken enormous amount of brainstorming and heart searching and checking and rechecking distances and profiles and that sort of thing. So he had taken all these out because he wasn't prepared to wait until the last minute and the going deteriorate. And so basically he just prioritised horse safety and well-being, and rider safety as well.
Okay.
And,
so how did it ride?
Well, the course ended up being pretty tough. It was very deep, and horses were exhausted going round the course. It was, I think, it was pretty remarkable that the course rode at all, because the weather did get deluged at times.
Okay.
But anyway, it did ride. A girl called Martina Martingale, actually from Western Australia, got into the lead. I think that's the right. It was Martina anyway, from Western Australia, and
was it Michaela Wood?
That's right, Michaela Wood.
Yep.
Michaela Wood, you got it. And she went round, I think, with 6 time penalties, which was far and away the fastest cross-country round, and went on into the lead.
Yeah.
And, she was almost an unknown young girl, clearly with lots and lots of talent. And so personally, I had 20 penalties where I had a run off on the double of apexes, a bit of a technical thing. I've jumped in a bit too strongly. I certainly had to really, really battle my way around the 2 waters. They didn't ride sweetly for me, and it was a bit of a gladiator type approach once I got in there and realised the wheels were falling off.
Okay.
It was a tough ride for me. Aspire R was very brave. He didn't give up, and that's critical. When the wheels are falling off, you do need a horse that'll just hang in and keep trying. And certainly when I finished, he was puffing pretty heavily, a lot more heavily than I would like if I can help it to have a horse. But he was fine. And he turned out today and show jumped. He had 2 rails down, which, he's a pretty careful horse, but I think it was telltale sort of signs of such a tough cross-country run. The leader, the Western Australia, what was the girl's name? Michaela. Michaela actually, I think, might have been 5 rails down or something, and I'm sure she thought it was catastrophic. It put her back into second place. I think it was T.S. Kismet, and ridden by. Have you got that girl in front of you?
Yeah. Her name was. Sorry.
You're right.
Just double check it. Elizabeth Lowry.
Yeah, Elizabeth Lowry was the girl that sort of rose basically from the unexpected. I think Elizabeth might have had 2 rails down, but did a really solid job, did a good job cross-country. I think it was probably the best I've ever seen her go, but she's really consistent, and I had actually tipped her in the last Equestrian Life edition to be one of the contenders at the end of the day. Well, she did better than that. She got up and won the class, and so she for the astute critic, she wasn't completely unexpected.
Okay.
Where Michaela, I think, if she had managed to just hang on and win, would have taken us all by shock. Now, the West Australian kids, which is where Michaela comes from, are certainly on a roll. They're doing extremely well in all the eventing classes. It's just gone crazy. It's very hard to explain because Western Australia is way, way, way off the beaten track in terms of competition. The standards are slightly lesser over there, but they have an incredible, enthusiastic population of young riders, and it's this sort of enthusiasm that's built up momentum, and it's inexplicably finding its way here on the eastern states, where you would expect the best and the fastest and the most likely Olympic riders are all flexing muscles. So, Michaela is definitely somebody to watch. I think the real tragedy was the Queensland girl, and I'm just trying to think of her name.
Was it Isabel English?
Isabel English. Isabel English, in my opinion, is a beautiful rider, lovely feel, has potential to be part of a medal team at some stage, but she'll certainly make an Olympic team. And
are you aware of what happened to her?
Yeah, she fell off in the show jumping, and she was jumping this beautiful round, and then it was this incredibly inexplicable sort of misunderstanding between her and her horse, and I'm thinking that would have been 4, 5, 6. It must have been 7A the part of a treble. She just came into 7A. She was actually producing a beautiful sort of copybook round and got into a communication tangle, and the horse sort of crashed through 7A, which was not particularly difficult. And Isabel went shooting out over the side and came off, and it was just heart wrenching. And a young girl, and she was happy that she was okay, but and that everyone was sort of trying to console her, but bawling her eyes out with disappointment, and everyone else was nearly as disappointed as she was for her. It was nobody wished that upon her, I can tell you, and she had a very real chance of completing a clear round. She, I think, was one of 3 people at Camden CIC 3-star 2 weekends ago that went clear in the show jumping, and I think the show jumping might have been more difficult at Camden in the CIC, and so I think it was fair to speculate she was going to do a very good round, if not clear, and had she done that, I think she would have won. So it was an event of great fortunes and misfortunes, and opportunity and missed opportunity. I think it's definitely indicative of the boiling pot and the surging of a new generation trying to get a grip on the ladder of recognition. And I think it was probably a competition that reflected names and horses that in years to come are going to become really outstanding Australians. Now, I think the score, I'd have to guess, but I'm thinking it probably ended up around 70 penalties. Is that right, the winner?
75.7. Yeah,
so 75.7 penalties was the winning score. And, a win's a win, make no mistake. But I think in Kentucky last weekend, a German boy called Michael Jung won, and his score was 39 penalties. Now, Michael Jung is part of the German team which at the moment is dominating the world. And that is a 4-star, so it was a tougher event again than Sydney, although it wouldn't have had quite the treacherous weather conditions that we had to survive here. But the scores we've got to look at to close the gap on the rest of the world at the moment are up around the 40 penalties. That's by the time you've done dressage, you've done the cross country, and you've done the show jumping. And so, I led the dressage here, and I had 49 penalties. And then I blew right out by the time I'd had a run out, which is 20 penalties. I think I ended up over 100 penalties. But, it was a great event here. But the Australians need to keep in mind that as they do sort of get a handle on, and especially our young riders, as they get a handle on this level of competition, that we have to keep an eye on where the rest of the world is. And there definitely is a gap now between our top riders and the riders that are going to win gold medals. Now, in the 90s, that was not the case. We were running the high scores and we were winning the gold medals.
Yeah.
And we did win the gold medals in 1992, in 1996, and in 2000. No nation has ever won at 3 consecutive Olympics, but we were nailing the highest scores in the world and in our local Australian bush competitions, if you like. And so, the first aim is to win the competition and hope that the riders in the competition are of such a high calibre that they push you up into a very respectable score. But having done that, our top riders almost have to take on an inner struggle where their winning scores, we've got to whittle them down until we can produce a team of riders that are capable of finishing with 40 penalties or less. And I think, having said that, I'm being a little harsh. Our top riders, like that's Shane Rose and Stuart Tinney and Megan Jones, if I'd be so bold as to name three, they're in another league from the team, the group of riders that just happened to do battle here in Sydney, and they had to do battle not just with each other but with the elements as well. But they are another league, so we're not as far off the pace internationally as it would appear at first glance. But we do have a gap between where we're finishing at the moment and the gold medal teams, which are going to finish with all three scores at 40 penalties or less. And so I think, moving into Rio, it's really important that we all keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all your insight, Heath. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And
great.
I think our viewers will really enjoy hearing all about the competitions and all your experience. So thank you very much.
All right. I hope it's good. Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Catch you. Bye.